Chris Watts was the man every woman dreamed of, at least. That's what Shanann Watts believed. Their love story seemed straight out of a fairy tale. But some fairy tales end in nightmares. This is the story of Chris Watts, a man who turned his home into a crime scene, his family into victims, and his secrets into a nationwide nightmare. August 13, 2018, Shanann Watts steps through the front door of her home, never to step out again. Christopher Lee Watts and Shanann Catherine Erzuchek's story began in North Carolina, where their paths crossed in 2010. Chris, hailing from Spring Lake, and Shanann, from Aberdeen, embarked on a relationship that ended in their marriage on November 3, 2012. Shanann had battled health struggles but found strength in Chris, the quiet, dependable man who made her feel safe. Their union was soon blessed with 2 daughters, Bella Marie Watts born and Celeste Catherine Cease Watts, born in 2013 and 2015. At the time of the tragic events, Shanann was 15 weeks pregnant, with a son they intended to name Nika. In 2013, Chris and Shanann chased the American dream to Frederick, Colorado. While Chris built his career in the oil industry, positioned at Anadarko Petroleum, Shanann thrived in health and wellness, becoming a brand promoter for Level's Thrive product line. But behind closed doors, the perfect life was slowly unraveling. Shanann loved sharing her life online. She posted videos of their daughters playing, moments of Chris being a great dad, and messages about how lucky she was to have him. To the outside world, their life seemed perfect. In 2015, the couple filed for bankruptcy, drowning in nearly $450,000 of debt, causing both Chris and Shanann to work diligently to stabilize their economic situation. Chris began to change. He became distant, avoiding her touch. His conversations reduced to short, one-word replies. And soon, Shanann sensed it before she even left for her work trip. The man who once adored her now barely looked her in the eye. In June 2018, while pregnant with their 3rd child, hoping him for rekindling their bond, Shanann sensed something was wrong. Chris was emotionally withdrawn. He stopped being affectionate. Her worst fears were confirmed when she discovered he was having an affair. On August 10, 2018, Shanann left for a business trip to Arizona, eager to grow her career. She texted Chris often, sending love and updates, but something felt off. His replies were cold, distant. The man who once adored her was slipping away, and she had no idea just how far he'd already gone. She confided in friends, sending messages late at night, her unease growing. Shanann's text messages: "I don't know what's wrong, I feel like I'm losing him." Best friend audio clip: "Maybe he's just stressed. Shanann, you two have been through a lot." Her friends tried to reassure her, but deep down, she knew something wasn't right. She analyzed his behavior, replayed their last conversations. In her head, searching for answers. Chris had become someone else entirely. He wasn't just emotionally absent, he was planning something unthinkable. He had fallen for someone else, a woman named Nicole Kessinger, a coworker who believed he was already separated. She was new, exciting, a thrill Chris hadn't felt in years. He told her he was in a loveless marriage, that he was trapped, that he wanted to start over. What she didn't know, or maybe refused to see, was that Chris was a liar, a man willing to erase his entire family to start fresh. Nicole believed him. She didn't know the truth, or maybe she didn't care to ask. Chris told her everything she wanted to hear. "Nicole, you're my soulmate. I've never felt this way before." While Shanann sent texts, begging Chris for answers, he was with Nicole, sending flirtatious messages and taking her on romantic weekend getaways. He became addicted to his double life, so much so that he started working out, changing his diet, even updating his wardrobe. He wasn't just having an affair, he was reinventing himself, becoming someone new. Chris was spending thousands of dollars on dinners, hotels, and gifts for Nicole, while Shanann was back home, worried about their finances, struggling to keep their household together. His priorities had shifted, and to him, there was only one thing standing in the way of his new life: his wife and children. August 13, 2018, 1:48 a.m., Shanann arrived home late from a work trip to Arizona. She has no idea that this night will be her last. She was exhausted, emotionally drained, and desperate for reassurance from Chris. Her hands trembled as she pulled her suitcase inside their home, her heart whispering a silent prayer. Please, let us be okay. But the man waiting for her inside was not the man she married. She sent him a final message before walking through the door. I love you, Chris. You have to talk to me. Chris never replied. That morning, Chris was seen on his neighbor's security footage, backing his truck into the garage at an unusual hour. He made several trips from the house to his vehicle, but he wasn't loading tools for work. Hours later, Shanann's best friend, Nicole Atkinson, became concerned when Shanann missed a scheduled obstetrics appointment. Her failure to attend a business meeting further heightened Nicole's anxiety. Shanann wasn't answering calls, and when Nicole arrived at the Watts home, something felt wrong. Shanann's car was in the driveway, her shoes were inside. Her phone, her purse, everything was there. Except Shanann and the girls, fearing for her safety, Nicole called 911, 911 call. Nicole Atkinson, hi, my friend is missing. She was supposed to go to a doctor's appointment, but she never showed. At 1:40 p.m., Officer Scott Coonrod arrived at the Watts home. Chris was there too, calm to calm. Inside, Shanann's purse, phone, and keys sat untouched. The children's medications remained, the family dog unharmed. And on the nightstand, a wedding ring, a silent symbol of something terribly wrong. No signs of forced entry, no struggle. Just an eerie emptiness where a mother and her daughters should have been. Officer's body cam questioning Chris. When was the last time you saw your wife? Chris folds his arms, looks away. Chris Watts, this morning. She took the kids to a friend's house. Not once did he ask, where's my wife? Where are my kids? Because Chris already knew the answer. As news spreads of Shanann and the girl's disappearance, Chris played the role of the worried husband well too well. He gave interviews begging for his family's safe return. But something was off. His tone was flat, his words rehearsed. He avoided eye contact, kept crossing his arms, and worst of all, he didn't seem worried. Chris Watts wasn't just lying, he was performing. Experts say his lack of real concern for his missing family was an immediate red flag. With a mother and two little girls missing, the Frederick Police Department called in reinforcements. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation and the FBI joined the search, determined to unravel the truth. But as investigators dug deeper, they would soon discover a chilling reality far worse than anyone imagined. Trained search dogs combed the Watts home, sniffing for any trace of Shanann and her daughters. But the results were chilling. No scent trail leading outside. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. Meanwhile, investigators knocked on doors, scanned security footage, and questioned neighbors. But the more they searched, the clearer it became this wasn't just a missing persons case. Something far more sinister had happened inside the house. Police weren't convinced, neither was Chris's neighbor, who had security footage that showed Chris making suspicious trips to his truck that morning. And then came the biggest red flag, the polygraph test. On August 15, 2018, Chris Watts agreed to take a polygraph test administered by the FBI. Investigator confirmed, Chris, if you had nothing to do with this, you won't mind taking a polygraph test. Chris agreed to take it, perhaps thinking he could outsmart the system. He didn't realize that he was about to fail it spectacularly. Polygraph examiner, have you physically harmed Shanann? The polygraph examiner used deliberate pauses, watching Chris's breathing and heartbeat spike. Every time he mentioned Shanann's name, the needle jumped erratically. The truth was catching up to him. Chris, you failed every question, the examiner told him. There's only one way out of this now, and that's to tell the truth. Chris was out of lies. But instead of telling the truth, he tried one more deception, one that was even more monstrous. What was that? Backed into a corner, Chris Watts clung to his innocence until he asked for one person, his father, Roy Watts. In that moment, the mask began to slip, and what came next would shatter the illusion of innocence forever. He told investigators that Shanann had hurt the girls, and in a fit of rage, he did the unthinkable and killed her, but police weren't buying it. They knew the truth was much, much darker. The interrogation room was cold and quiet. The only sound was the ticking of the clock. Chris sat hunched over, his fingers tapping nervously on the metal table. Across from him, the investigator leaned in, waiting for his next lie. Under pressure, Chris finally revealed the horrifying truth. Chris Watts whispering, "Dad, I did something terrible. He had strangled Shanann in their bedroom." Their daughters, Bella and Celeste, had woken up and seen their mother's lifeless body. Confused, scared, they had looked to their father for answers. "What's wrong with Mommy?" she asks, but instead of comforting them, Chris did the unimaginable. He drove them to an oil field, where he smothered them his own daughters before, disposing of their tiny bodies in oil tanks. Bella's final words? "Daddy, no." She had fought back, she had understood. And yet, Chris did it anyway. With his wife's body wrapped in a sheet, Chris loads her into his truck along with his two daughters, who are still alive. He drives 45 minutes to an isolated oil field, where he smothers Celeste first. Then Bella. He disposes of their bodies in crude oil tanks and buries Shanann in a shallow grave. Following his confession, Chris Watts finally revealed the unthinkable: the location of their bodies. On August 16th, investigators made a terrible discovery: Shanann buried in a shallow grave at Chris's worksite. Bella and Celeste, their tiny bodies submerged in crude oil tanks. The truth was darker than anyone had imagined. Even now, years later, the horror of what he did haunts those who hear this story. The senselessness of it, the cruelty, the betrayal. Investigators softly, "Chris, why?" But he had no answer except staring blankly at the wall. On August 21st, 2018, justice began to take shape. Chris Watts was charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder: his own wife, his own children, their lives stolen by the one meant to protect them. Alongside the murder charges came counts of unlawful termination of a pregnancy and tampering with their bodies. The facade had crumbled, and now the world would see Chris Watts for what he truly was. On November 6, 2018, Chris Watts pleads guilty to avoid the death penalty. On November 19, 2018, Chris Watts was sentenced to 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole. On top of that, 48 years for the unborn child he stole and 36 more for desecrating the bodies of his own family. He will spend the rest of his life in prison, locked away from the world he so desperately tried to manipulate. Shanann's family, heartbroken and forever changed, plead for justice. Her father speaks through tears. "We trusted you, Chris. You betrayed us." The Watts family tragedy captivated the world, sparking conversations about domestic violence, manipulation, and the facade of social media perfection. The horror of the Watts case gripped the world, inspiring multiple documentaries, including Netflix's American Murder, The Family Next Door. Using real social media posts, text messages, and home videos, the film offered an unfiltered look into the lives behind the tragedy. It forced viewers to confront a chilling truth: how easily a seemingly perfect life can hide unimaginable darkness. The tragedy didn't end with the murders. It rippled through the lives of those left behind. Shanann's family endured not only unbearable grief, but also relentless online harassment and cruel conspiracy theories. Yet, in the face of darkness, they fought back. In a landmark case, Shanann's mother, Sandra Ruchek, took legal action against those spreading lies, setting a powerful precedent in the battle against online exploitation. Today, their memories live on through their family, friends, and a community that refuses to forget. What we do know is that Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and baby Nika deserved so much more. Their story will never be forgotten. The Watts case remains one of the most haunting family tragedies in modern crime history. But it's not the only one. Tap here now, because what happened in the Aaron Davis and Brandon Risner will shock you even further.